How's that for an intro, huh? Yeah, I've got some explaining to do about that little title there, but one thing at a time. First things first, I wanted to apologize because in the last video I did a lot of mislabeling. Really, this line is from this scenario is from Shelby, Montana to Browning, Montana. I don't know why I called it Blackfish. I don't know where I got that. I think because there's a whitefish on this line, so I think I misread it. So I apologize for that. But secondly, this trip isn't going to end exactly like you expect it to. Not everything goes smoothly, and part of it is my fault. Part of it is just the game being weird. I can't really explain what exactly happens. You'll just have to see when we get there. But the first half is pretty good, so I'm here to entertain you for that period of time. So we're right where we left off. We're just leaving Cut Bank, which is the name of the area we were in prior with the yard and the depot. Now we're heading towards Browning. You can see I even checked the distance there. And it says Browning. I don't know how. I promise I can read. I do. I know how to read. I know how to read. I know how to spell. I graduated. I have a GED. I'm not stupid. Not that any of you thought I was, but still. There's a pretty big gaffe on my part. So, I apologize for that. Anywho, up the grade we go. I've got her in full notch 8. And we had another passing at the end of the last video, I believe. Another meet. And I think I'm looking ahead to see if there are any more oncoming trains. And I don't see any. But you're going to have a lot of in-cab today. I spent most of the first part doing some scenery videos, but I'm only going to put about 1 or 2 of those in. I'm pretty sure it's just 1. You're going to spend time with me in the cab, gabbing and switching between outside views. Just to get those wonderful EMD 643 sounds. Or 643, however you want to say it. So this is mostly an uphill grade. You can see it's pretty steep. We're kind of going at a crawl even at this speed. So I go to the back of the train just to kind of show you how far back it is. And when we take a scenery break, I'll have a section where the entire train goes by so you guys can count the cars if you want. This is a pretty long one. I actually haven't counted the cars myself, so you'll have to let me know what number you come up with. But I am enjoying this route. It's a little on the boring side at points because there's really no crossings yet, and I'm just kind of sitting and waiting and waiting. I think at one point here I start playing with the windshield wipers. Just because I'm at sheer boredom, because I just have it left in notch 8, which, retrospectively speaking, I think that was a mistake, and you'll see why a little bit later. I feel like I'm teasing a lot of what's to come later, but don't worry, we'll get there. Just be ready for failure, that's all I'm going to say. I thought the last failure in the Union Pacific video was bad. Oh boy. This one almost ended in tragedy. I mean, that one was bad. I mean, half of my train got ripped off somehow. I don't know how, but something in the simulation went screwy. That was pretty gnarly. So we didn't make it to our destination in that one, and unfortunately we're not going to make it to our destination in this one either. So I got to start doing practice runs of these routes before I make videos of them. I think that'll work out a little bit better for me. Right here, I think I'm trying to find the number board lights, if they're able to be activated on this model, which they aren't. And then I zoom in on the builder's plate, just to show how realistic it is. It's very old and faded, but General Motors, LaGrange, Illinois. Back when General Motors owned and operated EMD. Full name used to be General Motors Electromotive Division, or Electromotive Diesel, later on. Then they got rid of it. And it's been downhill ever since, which not necessarily. I mean, they built the SD-70 Ace. That's a locomotive. It's actually the locomotive you see in the intro. The blue Missouri Pacific UP Heritage unit, the Katy Heritage unit, and a regular UP unit. They sound great, they look great. I like the look of them better than the GEs, but I'm still trying to gather a consensus from actual engineers as to whether the SD-70 or the GE is better for overall, heavy freights. I'm seeing a lot of SD-70 Aces and ACUs on the not the Union Pacific, the Norfolk Southern. I watch a lot of the virtual Railfan horseshoe curve camera. And you see a lot of them. A lot of the ACUs are helpers, but you see a lot of the ACUs and or Aces up front. Sometimes they're mixed in with some GEVOs. So there's a new piece of railroad legislation floating around that might address PSR. It was actually put forward by, I believe, 2 Democrat representatives. So we'll see what happens in the future with this whole PSR thing and with some of the safety standards and so on and so forth. See if anything gets changed. See if the landscape of railroading changes. Yep, see, there's the wipers. At that point, I just got completely bored. And I was like, well, at least the wipers work. But there was really no changes in the route other than some speed. Wanted slower speed because I believe it starts to go downgrade a little bit. I'm checking to see how far my next checkpoint is. And they're not really checkpoints, they're just kind of on your way to the main location. This is where you're supposed to go. Even though all the switches are lined for you to go where you need to go anyway, so they're kind of pointless. I don't know. I hope everybody's having a good 2020. Mine's been okay. Spent a lot of time playing Train Simulator, and trying to really build up this channel and do more rail fanning activities, which is hard because at this time things are still shut down. I mean, it's June 9th and things are just starting to open up, but nobody's actually pulled the plug on, yes, we're open. So I'd like to make it down to the Strasburg Railroad because I'd like to pick up a reunion of Steam hat. I should have got one when I was there for the actual reunion of Steam, or for the when the 611 was there, but I didn't. And looks like they have a few left over, so I may order one online. I'm trying to decide if I want to wait till they open in July or just order one online, because I mean, it's only 20-25 minutes away from me where I live. But if they're not going to open till July, I kind of don't want to wait that long, in case they do happen to be out of them. But that's neither here nor there. So I'm trying to keep a decent speed, even though I'm still at full throttle. I can see what look to be defect detectors here, but they don't exactly work. Searchlight Simulations has an add-on where you can install manual defect detectors. It looks a little complicated, but I might give it a shot, see what I can do. I failed miserably at horn swap tutorials, but who knows, maybe I'll do better with this. Still struggling up. Alright, and we are coming up on that scenery break, so see if you can count how many cars we have on this here train, and I will see you guys when we get back. Alright, so here is where we run into our first bit of trouble. I'm trying to slow down for the upcoming grade. You can see I notched down. But I noticed that the engine doesn't sound like it's slowing down, and I'm not seeing... Well, RPMs are dropping, amps are dropping, but it doesn't look like RPMs are. So I'm figuring, okay, something is seriously wrong here. So I apply some braking, and that's working. But it still sounds like we're in notch 8. And I can't for the life of me figure out why. This is very unusual. You should start to hear the engine throttle down. Now, it may have something to do with the fact that I went back a couple engines and tried to notch up to get extra power, and I don't think you're supposed to do that. Normally, they would just do that automatically, but with this modification, they don't. They stay in idle, but yet somehow it seems like they notch up with you, even though it doesn't sound like they do. So, I keep going and putting the reverser in idle, or not the reverser, I keep putting the throttle in idle, and nothing's happening. And so I'm starting to freak out a little here. It's like, okay, clearly I need to slow down and or stop, because if I can't slow the train down, I'm going to be in real trouble. Because like I said, the brakes are working, but if the throttle is stuck, then clearly something is wrong. So I'm not sure if it's a glitch or if it was because, again, I went down to the third engine and tried to make it so that I had a little more power. And so I'm trying to think of every option possible here. Try throttling back up. Doesn't make a difference. I only went up to 7 there, then I pulled up to 8. And then I paused. Still the same. Down to 2. And no change in the RPMs. So that is telling me something is desperately wrong. So I went back to the third locomotive. This is the second one, which I notice is still in idle, so there's nothing wrong there. So I went back to the third locomotive, and I notched it all the way down to idle, I believe. Well, no, now I'm in the first cap again. You see what I mean, folks? Oh boy, this was a mess. So at this point I figure, okay, I've got to just flat out stop and figure out what's going on. And because this isn't a ranked scenario, I don't necessarily have to worry about AI trains getting in the way or being late. At least I think. But one way or another, I need to stop the train and figure out what's going on. Because this isn't natural. By any means. So eventually, that's what I do. I hit the emergency brake. It doesn't work. The emergency brake button doesn't work. I hit it a couple more times. Put it in idle. Again, nothing. And then I manually put it into emergency and just dump it all the way forward. There we go. And still no change in those RPMs. But the train is slowing down to a stop, so I feel better about that. But I still feel like I need to stop and figure out exactly why things aren't changing. Again, it could either be the game or it could be my messing with the third locomotive, but eventually I do get this problem solved. Okay, so I solved this problem, You can hear it idling quite nicely. So I figure, okay, now it's time to get going. And there really isn't a downhill grade, so I'm going to have to go back up to notch 8. So I release the brakes. Verser's already in forward. I go up to notch 2. And I figure I'm going to slowly notch it up, because if I am on a slight grade, so it's going to take a little bit of doing to get the train moving. Notch 3, notch 5. Everything is sounding normal. The RPMs are going up at a normal rate. And we're moving okay. The train isn't struggling too bad. Now, I do think it was the locomotive. But I can't be sure. And when I say the locomotive, I mean that third locomotive. I did end up putting it in idle and putting the reverser in the center, because usually they say that's what you want to do for the trailing units. So I did that, and I think it worked quite a bit. So everything seems to be back to normal, so I say, okay, well, onward to Browning then. Now see, there is Blackfoot, Maine. I think that's where I got confused. Between Blackfish and Browning. I don't know. Montana's weird. No offense if you're from there. So I'm looking at the back of the train to make sure it's getting up to speed. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. And we're on our way, or so I think. Everything's going okay. Of course, I might be a little bit late. But there really isn't a time limit for this scenario. The only thing I have to worry about would be AI trains, and as far as I can tell, the line is pretty clear from here, so really there shouldn't be any more problems going forward. I should just be able to make it to Browning Station with little to no problems. It's only about, I don't know, 5 miles out from here. I think I check at some point. And, yeah. Just more smooth sailing. That was definitely an interesting situation. I don't think that's ever happened to me before, but nevertheless, things got back to normal fairly quickly, and we got moving quickly again, so all is well. Or so I think for the next couple of minutes. Everything looks good there. However, the unexpected is about to happen in just a few minutes here. At this point, I think I'm thinking, wow, I don't know what that was, but I'm glad that it didn't end the scenario. Oh, what little do I know about what's coming. See, yeah, just a couple miles out, about 8 miles out from the next checkpoint. And now we're a little bit further out. And what is that in the distance? Is that an AI train on a single track? Is he moving? I can't tell. So I zoom in a little bit, and it clearly is an AI train. But I'm thinking, okay, so he stopped at a signal, so he must be on a siding waiting for me. Because usually in these scenarios, that's kind of how it's scripted, is that you have the right of way. But I start to notch down just to be safe, because I can't really tell what's going on, and the last thing I want is a head-on collision. So I notch down and just approach it slowly, and pretty soon I'll start some brake application. You know, just in case, or maybe I'm thinking there's a siding to the right that I need to go to, and he's just sitting on the main right before the turnoff. And that is a correct assumption on my part, because there is a siding to the right. However, what I didn't realize until I got closer was that he is blocking the entrance to the siding. He's right at the signal, and he's got a full stop. I've got a full stop. So I can't get into the siding. And again, we are on a one-track main currently. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, clearly he's not on a siding. Clearly I have no way to get in, so I'm screwed here. So I've got to stop. And don't worry, I don't want to have a head-on collision. I just want to get within good distance of the signal. But I'm thinking to myself, man, what is going on? And then I realized that because I made an emergency stop, I think it messed with the AI's pathing. So he got to this signal, and I was still on the main. And obviously there's nothing he can do. At the point he was at, he probably couldn't have hit the siding, and the AI wouldn't have known to do that, unfortunately. So that's it. That's it for this journey, guys. I can't do anything. I think for a second, maybe I can, request to pass at the signal. So I try to do that, and it won't let me. And then I think, okay, well, we'll try that again, and it doesn't work. And then I think to myself, the only other option I have would be to reverse to the nearest siding. But then I have to look to see where the nearest siding was because I couldn't remember. Because he's not going to move no matter what. If we're at a danger signal, he's not going to move. And I can't move either, other than to back up to a siding. But in order to do that, I have to look on the map and see where it is. And so I center where my train is. You can see his train is in the blue. And I go further and further up the line, and nothing. No sidings. So that's it. I had to end it. I'm sorry the way it ended, folks, but I guess it was still a good run. But that is my bad. So, thank you very much for watching. This has been Orange Cactus Productions with a quite interesting ending. Probably the second one I've done. And my phone is ringing. And I will see you guys next time. God bless. Have a good one. See you on the high iron next time.